All right, good morning, everyone. So this is your UFC 247 recap. Um, wow, what headline you're going to have for this one, huh? I think the pundits in the UFC would probably say John Jones retains his title, and I think most of the fans would say, who in the hell are the judges in Texas? Um, a lot of close fights, to be fair. Um, there were some close fights that could have went either way. Derek Lewis, Amir Latifi, fairly close. I thought Latifi won, but not too crazy. Derek Lewis wins. He's a Houston native. He lives there, so okay, let's give the benefit of the doubt. Dan Ige got the decision over Masad Betic. Um, Close fight. Could have went either way. I thought maybe Betic won, and so that's certainly up in the air. The close fights you can't really get too upset about. So um, Juan Adams got absolutely starched, knocked out in 2 minutes, first round. No issues there. Valentina Shevchenko just destroyed Chukagian. It was just clean all the way through. Just a beating. Just showed why she's considered one of the best female fighters in the world. I don't know who's going to challenge her. Main event was pretty bad. Some of the undercards were too, as far as the judging went. There was one judge that was just seemed like crazy all the way through. I mean, he had wild scores all the way. The main event, most people, okay, more than 50% of everything I've seen, and I'd say probably about 65%, said that Dominic Reyes won the fight. I felt like he definitely won the fight. 3 rounds to 2. I couldn't give him any more than that. But I can't find 3 to give John Jones either. It was pretty clear that Dominic Reyes for 3 rounds was just clearly the better fighter. And then in the last 2 rounds, John Jones clearly took over. One judge gave it 4 rounds to 1 for John Jones. Just insane. Dana White said that was insane. Now, here's the biggest issue again for me. This goes back to the 246 issues. Dana White said, why do we care? Paraphrase this so if any kids are watching. We're not judges. That's the most ridiculous and juvenile statement I think I've heard in a long time. Why do we care? We're not judges. We are judges. Everyone who watches the fight is their own judge. Everyone who bets the fight. I have a friend who loves to bet underdogs. I haven't seen him or talked to him since the fight's obviously it's Sunday morning. But I'm sure that he's not very happy if he bet. He really wanted to go for Reyes and really wanted to pull the trigger. Thought it was, after the Santos fight, John Jones was ripe to lose. And he loves to bet fights. And he does pretty well at it. He makes money. It's what he does. And if he lost that bet, I'm sure he's not very happy. And who cares? Because we're not a judge. This is where people are really losing their faith in all combat sports. I mean, boxing, UFC, all of it is really falling apart, and it's falling apart rapidly because if anyone says anything bad about Conor McGregor, what's wrong with them? It's an opinion. Say what you will. If someone says something bad about John Jones lost his fight. What's wrong with them? Nothing's wrong with them. A lot of people feel like he lost the fight. But all of that aside, what's truly frightening is that the powers that be at the UFC try and dismiss everything as, well, we're not a judge, so we can't say that. That fans of the sport, you have a right to your opinion, whether you're right or wrong, whether you know whatever you think. You still have a right to it. If you think Reebok should never have been given the sole right to property, fighters were making money off sponsors on their gear, and the UFC took that from them by bringing in Reebok. Now, if you think that it's right or wrong, it's your opinion. You're not completely right. You're not completely wrong. It's your opinion. You can say whatever you want. If you're betting fights, or if you're paying for UFCs to watch these fights, you have a right to your opinion. You have a right to say, I don't think this was correct or that was correct. People are not being very fair. You know, Stephen A. Smith said what he said at 246. Everyone jumped on his case, or a lot of people jumped on his case. Right to his opinion. I think John Jones lost this fight. I have a right to my opinion. No, I'm not a judge for the UFC or for any athletic commission, but I have a right to my opinion. And Dana White trying to whitewash over people's opinions and the right to them is insane. You know, he did it with Conor. He was asked, people asked on the Conor situation, what about his sexual allegations in Ireland? Do you worry that could stop the fight, or is that a problem? And Dana White's only answer was, he hasn't been charged with anything. Now I understand they're saying, is Conor going to go to jail for that? Well, he hasn't been charged with anything. Okay, that makes sense. But from another standpoint, do you care if it's right or wrong? Do you actually care if Conor McGregor sexually assaulted some women? Or does it matter that he hasn't been charged? Which way are we going here? Are we going to be adults about this and say, if you've done bad things, you're a bad person? Or are we going to say, until you prove it? You know, I've always said, are you a murderer the moment you're convicted, or are you a murderer the moment you kill someone? That's a pretty decent argument, I think. You wouldn't be a convicted murderer if you get away with it, but you still killed somebody. If you actually did it and nobody caught you, you still did it. If the judging is bad in this case and is unfair, it's unfair. Stop John Jones being undefeated and being the champion and having a super fight with Stipe or fighting Israel Adesanya or whatever's coming next is a big fight for the UFC, and everybody knows it. But can we be fair here and allow people to have a dissenting opinion and say, you know what, Dominic Reyes won that fight, and he should be given credit for winning that fight? Or do we have to toe the company line and say, well, nope, we're not judges. You heard Dana. He's not the king. He does a great job with some things, but other things he covers up for fighters because it can make the UFC money. I know he's a promoter. I know that's his job. But it really takes the trust for a lot of people out of the sport when they don't believe that his true interest is in what's right and wrong. And he even said going into the 5th round, he had it 3-1 for Reyes. Not even saying he had John Jones winning the fight. And yet he'll still cover for it, try and keep people from criticizing the situation because we're not judges. It's not fair. It's not right. And anybody who lost money on that fight doesn't think it's right or fair. So anyway, there's your recap. If you get a chance to watch them, there's actually some good fights in there. Some interesting, entertaining fights, and some great knockouts. With Batista, the flying knee, he got a knockout. Controversial fight, with Giles getting a decision win. But mainly, the whole narrative is the judging was so flawed that it damaged the event. And that's a shame.